This is the OBSBOT Talent, an all-in-one compact multicam switcher, encoder, recorder, monitor, and controller for all your live streaming needs. After testing it out for about a month, I think it's a very impressive device. Let's talk about it. If you're new here, I'm Sebastian and welcome to the channel where I talk about Lumix cameras and all things video and audio related. Full disclosure, OBSBOT sent this to me to test out, I get to keep it, and they're paying me to make this video. So consider this video a showcase. However, they didn't tell me what to say, and I'm allowed to say whatever I want about this device, which I will. All the chapters in this video are timestamped. So in this video, we're going to set up a live stream from scratch. But before we get into that, let me give you an overview of the OBSBOT Talent. Note that my unit is on pre-production firmware, so more functionality may be added in the future, and that's in fact already been confirmed to me by OBSBOT. The Talent has an aluminium alloy body and feels very solid and built to last. It's of a similar size to most 5-inch external camera monitors, albeit a bit thicker, but very compact overall. It looks and feels very professional. It comes with a 12-volt adapter and an overly solid metal sun hood and 2 stands that fit into the battery slots. It's got heat management via its body and a small built-in fan that's audible but not too loud. It has 2 HDMI ports on the left side, 2 USB-A 3.0 ports on either side that can be used to connect a USB camera or to read and write to a flash drive, a 3.5mm mic input that can be set to line level, a headphone port. On the bottom we find a 1/4-inch thread, an Ethernet port, a USB-C port that can be used for several things, I'll get to that in a minute, and an SD card slot for recording the live stream or for loading additional media onto the device. But that can also be done through its internal storage of 64GB. The OBSBOT Talent has excellent power options. It comes with a 12-volt DC adapter, but can also take 2 MPF style batteries. And the great thing about this is that these power sources can be hot swapped. So no interruptions when it needs a fresh battery or when you want to switch over to mains power. I'm impressed by the screen of this device. Not only does this 5.44-inch 350 nits 8-bit AMOLED 1080p touchscreen look very good, it's also super responsive. Hardly any lag, and it's just a pleasure to operate the device via its touchscreen. It can also auto-rotate if you mount it upside down or to vertical for streaming to platforms like Instagram. Connectivity-wise, there are so many options that it's kind of hard to give you a quick, comprehensive overview, but here we go. For connection to a network and the internet, it has the Ethernet port that I just mentioned, but it can also connect via Wi-Fi or via cellular, for which you need to connect a dongle, and it can run all of these connections at the same time. It also has Bluetooth that can be used to either connect a Bluetooth audio source or to connect Bluetooth headphones for audio monitoring. So far quite advanced already, but pretty easy to comprehend, right? But now we're getting into all the different input and output connections and protocols this device supports. In terms of input sources, it supports 2 HDMI sources, 2 USB sources like USB webcams or mirrorless cameras that support this. It can take 3 IP sources that can be NDI, SRT, RTMP, which amounts up to 7 input sources we can switch between on this little device. But in addition to that, we can basically unlimitedly add media like videos for playback, pictures, documents, websites and whatnot as sources as well. And it has an instant replay feature. Which can be great for sports, for example. On top of all this, it can also stream in 1080p to 2 platforms at the same time, and that can be to like social media platforms, but it can also, for example, stream to YouTube and send an NDI stream out to another switcher. So for instance, I could add an NDI source to OBS and have the OBSBOT Talent send the program to OBS via NDI. It also has integration with OBSBOT's cameras, like the tail air, which I'll show you later on. The USB-C port on the bottom is super versatile and can be used to transfer files to a computer. It can be used as an extra USB-C webcam input, as an input for a USB-C microphone, but also as a video output to an external display or as an audio output. So many options, it can make your head spin. And in my testing over the last month or so, it all works really well. Let me show you all the features by setting up a stream and going over all the features it has to make live streaming super easy. First, we can create a new show by going to the menu, choosing Create a Show, setting the frame rate, which I'm going to set to 29.79 frames per second, and the show name Demo. We can choose a 9:16 vertical aspect ratio, but I'll pick 16:9 horizontal. Create. Then we can start adding our sources. I'll start with my two HDMI sources. I'll tap on the plus, and I can choose what type of input this has to be. By the way, these are not just inputs, they're actually scenes, as you can see at the top here. There's a fly. I'll choose HDMI 1. I can resize, crop, add a label, HDMI 1, resize that if I want to. I don't actually want a label. I can flip the image horizontally or vertically and add a transition in. I can choose the in transition. Let's do a fade and an out transition. Also fade. And this is also where I can key out a green screen if I add one, but this is where the key option is. So I'm going to hit save, and now I have my first scene set up. I forgot my lights. Let's add HDMI 2 in the same way. I'll hit the plus, hit HDMI 2, which is my second angle over here to film the screen. And I'm not going to have to do anything to this, so I'll hit save and I've got my second angle. I've also got one OBSBOT tail air set to UVC mode connected to one of the USB ports. So let's add that one. I'm going to hit plus again, and then I'm going to choose webcam 1. And we can see already this is my OBSBOT tail air that's set up to shoot my main camera and my teleprompter. You know, this kind of long technical videos, I really need a teleprompter. By the way, this is a Moman teleprompter that's been sent to me by Moman. It's great. I use my iPad to display. So I'll hit save for this. I have two other tail airs that I want to add as sources, but they're both set up differently. One is set up to connect via NDI. So let's do that one. I'll hit the plus again, choose NDI stream, and then go to search. I'll hit refresh, and there it is. And then I tap it, and that's the angle of the back of the tail air. And it's now there as an input source. Now, this is also where I want to show you some of the integration with the OBSBOT cameras, with the tail air in this case. Because when I switch to this input, I now get an additional icon in this area, which brings up PTZ control for the tail air, along with some more controls. So I can move the PTZ head, turn autofocus on and off, and I can engage tracking and start recording to its SD card. The next tail air I've set up in SRT mode. Well, not yet, but I'm going to show you. This is a feature that has recently been added to the tail air. So first, let's add an SRT stream to the OBSBOT Talent. Hit plus, hit SRT stream, and then I'm gonna give it a name. Tail air, SRT, doesn't really matter. And now I'm gonna go into the OBSBOT app on my phone, and then I'm going to SRT settings and set the tail air to listener mode. And then I'm gonna type in the IP address in the OBSBOT Talent. and then the port as shown on the tail layer, and then the stream ID. I gave it the name wide because it's a wide shot. And then I'm gonna hit create. And as you can see, there is no signal yet, but that's because I have to turn on SRT mode in the tail layer. So I'll switch it on now, and it gives you this prompt, and that's fine. And as you can see, there it is. As easy as that. So now we have an SRT source as well. So I'll hit save. So at this point, we have two IP sources basically, but you can have a maximum of 3 IP sources at the same time. So I'll add another NDI source, which is my iPad. With the NDI capture app, I can have the iPad's screen as an NDI source. So I'll add an NDI stream, and it displays here as localhost display. I'll hit that, and there it is. It's my teleprompter screen, and it's obviously mirrored, so it's basically a useless scene, but just to show you that you can use an iPad via NDI. Lastly, let's set up picture-in-picture on HDMI 2. So I'll go back to HDMI 2 right here. I'll long press it, hit edit, and then I can add a layer or a source basically on top of it. I'll choose HDMI 1. Now I can reposition it, but before I do that, I actually want to have it like in a circle in the corner somewhere. So I'll hit frame, and then I'll leave it at the default frame, but hit corners. If I put the corners up to 100, it becomes like an oval. But when I go back to the menu and I'll hit crop, and I'll crop it to 1:1, now it's a circle that I can move around and resize and put in the corner right here. So now if we go to scene 2, basically HDMI 2, we have a picture-in-picture of my main angle in the second scene. Okay, so all camera sources have been set up. Now let's add some additional media like a wait screen and an end screen. Again, we'll just hit the plus to add a scene, and we can now select a video file that's on the SD card or the internal storage. I'll choose video clip, and I've got a wait screen video file on the SD card. I'll load it, and we can modify this to our heart's content, basically. We can obviously resize it and crop it and everything. I'm not going to do that, but what I am going to do is go to Action, and this is where I can select how I want this video to behave when I switch to it. So I'm going to change Start Action to Auto Start, and the End Action to Repeat Video, and then Switch Action is Rewind to Start. So when I switch to that scene, it will restart the video. I'll hit save. You can also select a play range, so you don't have to necessarily play back the whole video. You can also let it play a part of it. I'm just going to leave it as the whole video. I'll also add an end screen in the same way. Video clip, I've got my end screen here. This one, I want to fade to black when the video is done. I'll still hit auto start, but end action is go to black. Save. So now we've got the wait screen and the end screen right here. These video clips contain audio, and we can adjust the levels by going to the audio meter icon in the edit area of the scene and bring it down some. So I've got a slider, I'll bring it down a bit, hit save, go to this one, bring it down a bit. We can always adjust this later on as well, which I'll show you when we get to the streaming part. Now this is where I can also show you the options for adding graphics and animation. In this area here, there's a GFX button. This is where we can load and set all sorts of things like titles, lower thirds, animated text, clocks, lists, social media tags, and more. So I'll hit plus, and I'll pick timer to make a countdown sort of animation for the wait screen. I can change the color Let's change it to red. And let's remove the background. So I'll put transparency to 100. And this is a bit funny. It says tips, but it's actually the text underneath. I don't know why that's called tips. But anyway, let's change that color to a tealish kind of color. And then there is a policies button in which you can set how you want it to behave. So let's also set this to auto start. And when it's being hidden, let's have it reset the timer. And what I can also say is when the timer ends, reaching 0, switch scene, and then switch to HDMI 1, my main angle, for example. I can also obviously change the duration, so let's put it to 4 minutes or something. I'll hit save. Let me show you what that looks like. I'll go to my wait screen, hit GFX, and then hit timer. And there it is. There's the timer. I could probably make it a bit smaller. So I'll long press it, hit edit, change the size a bit, put it back in the middle, and there it is. But I also want to add a logo. So I'll hit the plus in the GFX area, hit logo, and I've got a logo right here. And I'll resize it to something very small. And then put in the corner, and I can add a transition to this as well. So let's have it come in from the bottom and go out to the side. If I now turn it on, you can see it comes in, and if I turn it off, it goes out to the side. And let's also add a lower third social media tag, YouTube, and I'll say subscribe. And please do bring it down to the left bottom corner. And again, I'm going to add a transition. Let's try another one. In from the bottom, fly, and then out. So if I now turn this one on, it comes in from the bottom, and then it goes out to the bottom of the screen. So now that we've set up all of our scenes, we can also arrange them however we want and resize the previews by going to the 3-dot menu and then say rearrange, resize. So I'll put my wait screen on the very beginning as the first scene, and I'll put this wide shot as the third scene and the teleprompter shot next to the actual screen of the teleprompter. And I can also, like I said, resize the thumbnails. I can have big thumbnails of the scenes, which by the way are live updated thumbnails, but I'm gonna make them small. Hit done. So I've already put in my login credentials for YouTube, put in a title and description, and set it to unlisted in this case. So I'm gonna say OBSBOT Talent demo, no description, and I'm going to set the privacy setting to unlisted. And before I hit the live button, which is right here, I'm going to go into settings. This is the system settings menu. Go to encode, and this is where I can set the encoder settings. So I'll add a new one. Encoding source, you can either record or stream the program or the individual sources. I'll go for the program, do it in H.265, resolution 1080p, frame rate 29.97, video bitrate, I heard that like 12,000 is good. I'm not entirely sure what's best. I'll leave the audio bitrate and I'll hit add, and then I'll go back to the main screen. Stream, connect to YouTube, and now we're live, so let's check that. Why is it not streaming? What? So this is where I had to stop recording because YouTube was broken. I couldn't upload any videos, I couldn't stream, nothing. So let's try again, see if YouTube wants to cooperate. I've hit stream, so now we should be live. Let's check it out. There we go, we're live. So it's as easy as that. I'm now also hitting record, and this records this stream, whatever I do on here, to the internal storage. And we can actually record in 2 different encoder settings, just like I showed earlier, and record 2 separate files. So for example, I could set encoder 2 to a lower quality, like lower resolution or codec, if I need to. This also allows us to stream to 2 different destinations at the same time, as I mentioned earlier. According to the manual, it should be capable of ISO recording. But I find that to be a bit misleading, because an ISO recording is a clean, isolated recording from a single camera used in a multi-camera production, and it can't actually do that. It can only record the 2 different encoder settings simultaneously, and one of the 2 can record a separate feed, like a separate scene, and the other one can too, so you can have 2 separate scenes recording. But it can't actually record every single input separately. So if we need every camera angle to be recorded individually, we'll have to record on the camera itself. The integration with OBSBOT's cameras shows again in this area, because we can start recording on all of them via the OBSBOT Talent, which is a great feature to have. Now I'm already recording on them, and one thing to note is that when it's in SRT mode, you don't actually get that option. But if it's set up in NDI mode, you can see here when I bring up the PTZ controls that it's actually recording, and I could also stop the recording from here. And when it's in UVC mode, like this one is, you also can't actually record to the SD card. I'm actually recording that via the OBSBOT Center app. So the way to have them record to the SD card all at the same time is to have them set up in NDI mode. Okay, back to live streaming. I can now super easily switch between different angles. I can just tap them and swipe this around, go to the end screen, go to the start screen. I can even hit play and pause on this video clip of my wait screen on the thumbnail itself. And if I want to show any graphics or the timer, I'll hit GFX, hit the timer, and this will start playing. And it shows me everything I have loaded up in these thumbnails. So I can turn on the logo, I can put the social media thing up. And what's really cool and useful is that once we're streaming to, say, YouTube, like I'm doing now, we get the option to have the live chat on screen, and we can also display individual comments on the stream with the option to have them auto-clear after a specified time. So we get this additional icon. If I click that, it says show live comment, and I can choose the style. I'll keep it light and small text size. I'll toggle on show, and now I get this box here. And if I was to type in a comment, it will now appear in this box. So I can have the live chat just on screen. And when I long press that comment, I can choose different layouts for the comments, and I can tell it to auto clear after a specific duration. So let's say I'll put it at 20 seconds and I'll hit send, and it will show up on the live stream. That's a really cool and useful feature, and now it will disappear in 20 seconds. I do have something to say about how this works though, but I'll get to that later. What's also cool is that I can live draw on screen and have it either stay on screen or disappear after a few seconds. If I want to, say, draw attention to this, I can just draw on screen and it will disappear. This can be super useful if you're doing a presentation of some sort and need to draw attention to something specific on screen. Up till now, we've been looking at video sources mainly. But of course, there has to be audio too. And there's a mixer right on screen here. All of our sources are listed here, and we can mute or unmute, set it to always on, for example, like I have here with my HDMI 1 audio source. Pick which ones we want to monitor and adjust audio levels. Currently, my audio is coming from my Sennheiser MKE600 that's going into my Lumix GH6 via my Sennheiser EWDP wireless system, and then into the OBSBOT Talent via HDMI. But I also have this USB microphone connected to the USB-C port of the device. I'll mute my HDMI 1. So I messed up. I did mute HDMI 1, the audio input, but I left all the other ones on. And this is what that sounds like. The only USB mic of this type that I have. So there you have it. Not good. So let me try again. You're now listening to this USB mic going into the OBSBOT Talent directly. I don't particularly like this microphone. In fact, I don't really like it at all, but it's the only USB mic of this style that I have. So don't buy this mic. It's just to demonstrate that it works into the OBSBOT Talent. I'll switch back to my Sennheiser. If we want to check our connections and the device status and adjust the screen brightness, I can swipe down from the top and we get an overview of the active connections. There's a button for the rotation and the lock. Device status brings up the status screen, and I can adjust headphone volume and the screen's brightness. Let's put that up. And I can also see which inputs are active. So the interface looks and feels a bit Apple-like. And as an Apple user myself, I don't mind that at all. Overall, the interface is quite intuitive and easy to use. Menus and buttons are in places that make sense. And as I mentioned earlier, it's all very responsive. Though I think there are a few things that could be better. First thing is the way graphics work. Setting up the graphics overall is easy, but it can get a bit fiddly with resizing and repositioning a small logo like this one, because my finger is basically covering the thing that I'm moving around. I would like to see the option to zoom in or out on the entire canvas to make it easier to move small graphics around. The other thing is the too many steps it takes to display a graphic or timer or whatever I have set up. I have to tap the GFX button first and then select which graphic I want to display. It would be great to have the programmed graphics as a row of small thumbnails above the scene thumbnails. That way I could instantly display a graphic or animation or whatever. Another thing is, again, too many steps I need to take to display a comment on stream. I have to have this box, obviously, and then I have to long press, I have to go through this screen, hit send, and then it will display on the stream. I think it would be much better if the duration and the layout could be a preset, and that from there on, the only action to display a comment would be double tapping on the actual comment. So everything can be done from the device itself, but there's a web interface as well, which basically lets you control 80% of the features. You can see it behind me. But things like editing graphics and overlays is not possible. Once everything for the stream is set up, though, we can control a lot of things. We can switch scenes, show live comments, adjust levels in the audio mixer, and adjust quite a few settings. I like it that this option is available, as it is easier sometimes to do things with a mouse and keyboard on a bigger screen. However, you can actually connect a mouse and keyboard to the OBSBOT Talent itself. That said though, you don't actually need a computer at all to set up a fairly complex multi-camera stream and go live. The only thing you need is MPF batteries, an internet connection of some sort, and the OBSBOT Talent is ready to do its thing. So the price for the OBSBOT Talent, at the time I recorded most of this video, was $12.99. But they've decided to drop the price by $200, going from $12.99 to $10.99 US. And for this price, you'll get a very capable, well-rounded, all-in-one portable streaming device that has so many useful features and allows for a fairly complex multi-camera live streaming setup with basically all kinds of wired and wireless type connections for video and audio input sources. This is already a very long video, and I haven't even shown you every single feature this device offers. And I say well-rounded, and this is not really a surprise. I don't know if you noticed in the beginning of this video, but on the start screen it says powered by Magewell. And that's because at the core, the OBSBOT Talent is a Magewell Director Mini that was released about a year ago, I believe. That means that at its core, it's not a newly developed device, but more a to OBSBOT tailored rebranded Director Mini. The advantage of this is that it doesn't feel or operate like a pre-production unit or a version 1 of a new product. It already works in a stable manner, and most of the kinks have already been ironed out, which I think is a great move. It's at a very interesting price point, especially if you consider that the Magewell Director Mini is $12.99. So this is $200 cheaper and has most of the same functionality, and in some areas has even more functionality. So overall, I think it's a fair price for what you get. Let me know what you think. Overall, I enjoy using it a lot, and I will use the OBSBOT Talent as my only streaming device going forward. But there's definitely room for improvement as well. The things I mentioned earlier about the interface, but I would also like to see some extra functionality in the audio area, like maybe a compressor or at least a limiter, perhaps an equalizer and a noise gate. Who knows what OBSBOT can add in the future. What I already do know is coming is a companion app that allows a phone to be added as a camera source. It's already listed in the sources menu, but doesn't work yet. And as far as I understand, there's going to be integration with OBSBOT Center app as well. I'm looking forward to see what that's going to look like. For now, it's already pretty amazing what it can do. The only big downside, and what could be a deal breaker for some, is that the outgoing resolution is capped at 1080p. No 4K live streaming. For me personally, that's fine. I never stream in 4K and probably won't for the foreseeable future. But if you do need to stream in 4K, this is not the device to get. If this got you interested in the OBSBOT Talent, there's a link in the description where you can check it out. And if you use this code at checkout, you'll get 10% off your purchase if you do decide to pick one up. Let me know if you have any questions and if you think this is an interesting device. I hope this video was helpful. If so, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and maybe hit that notification bell, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.